Bom dia, sejam todos bem-vindos à solenidade de abertura do Seminário de Formação para Professores de Inglês, Teacher Training Day. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the opening ceremony of the Teacher Training Day. O Centro de Formação Antonino Freire dá as boas-vindas para os 340 participantes de todo o Brasil, presentes em 12 estados, incluído o Distrito Federal, e os nossos 68 espalhados por todos os 5 continentes. O Centro de Formação Antonino Freire, Self-Efficacy, gives to all a hearty welcome for the 340 attendees for Brazil across 12 states, including the Federal District, and 68 who registered, who are spread in 5 continents around the world. Cefaf tem na sua agenda o compromisso de fornecer oportunidades de formação para professores que experimentem e empreguem novas estratégias de ensino, principalmente no atual cenário da pandemia da Covid-19. Cefaf has a commitment to give formation opportunities which teachers can experiment and utilize new strategies of learning, mainly in the actual context of the COVID-19 pandemic. O objetivo do evento é explorar as metodologias ativas e tecnologias digitais, que podem promover uma participação mais ativa dos alunos no seu processo de aprendizagem, sugerindo possíveis mudanças nas práticas pedagógicas. The main goal of the Teacher Training Day is to explore how active and digital technologies can promote a more active participation of students in the learning process, suggesting possible changes in pedagogical practices. Agora, iremos convidar todos os presentes para prestigiarmos a apresentação musical. Now, we invite you all to honor the musical presentation. Convidamos o músico Alessandro Vieira, nascido em Teresina, egresso do curso de Letras em Inglês da Universidade Estadual do Piauí, que hoje trabalha somente como músico, com um repertório quase todo de músicas em língua inglesa. E ele vai interpretar, em voz e violão, a canção Sunshine on My Shoulders, do John Denver. We invite the musician Alessandro Vieira, born in Teresina, undergraduate of UESP's English course, who today works only as a musician, with almost all songs in the English language, and will interpret the song Sunshine on My Shoulders by John Denver.
Sing this song in this Teacher Training Day. John Denver, Sunshine. Sunshine on my shoulder, this makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me happy. If I had a day that I could give you, I'd give to you the day just like today. If I had a song that I could sing for you. I'd sing a song to make you feel this way. Sometimes though my shoulders makes me happy. Sometimes if my eyes can make me cry.
Agora, convidamos para a mesa de honra o coordenador do The English Club Piauí, Alexandre de Oliveira, que fará uso da palavra. Now, we invite to the table of honor the English Club Piauí coordinator, Alexandre de Oliveira, to make his speech.
So, good morning, everybody. It's an honor for me to take part in the organization team of this event. Hope you all enjoy what we have prepared for you. And also, I'd like all of you to participate, take part, asking questions, discussing topics, because that's the purpose of our event, to make you feel comfortable to engage and interact with all of us. Então, para mim é uma satisfação participar do grupo de organização desse evento de grande importância para professores do Brasil e de outros países do mundo. E esperamos que vocês todos aproveitem um momento para discutir, opinar e dar sugestões nesse momento de troca de informações aqui no nosso Teacher Training Day.
Nós agradecemos a fala do professor Alexandre Santos e agora convidamos para a mesa de honra a coordenadora a coordenadora pedagógica do Centro de Línguas Padre Raimundo José, a professora Josélia Batista dos Santos, que fará uso da palavra. Now, we invite to the table of honor the Centro de Línguas Father Raimundo José, the pedagogical coordinator Josélia Batista dos Santos, to make her speech.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to say thanks to Raimundo for inviting me to be here today. And I work at Centro de Línguas, a public school in Teresina, and our main objective is to enhance the English teaching in Teresina, Piauí, and also outside our state. And today, being this conference, it's really important because it's going to broaden our perspective and views about English language and culture. É um prazer estar aqui hoje nessa conferência. Eu sou coordenadora do Centro de Línguas e o nosso principal objetivo é o desenvolvimento do ensino de língua inglesa no estado do Piauí e fora do Piauí. E eu gostaria de agradecer em especial ao Raimundo que fez esse convite e que eu estou aqui presente para esse evento.
Nós agradecemos a fala da professora Josélia e agora convidamos para a mesa de honra o coordenador de idiomas do Centro de Formação Antônio Freire, Self-Efficacy, professor mestre Raimundo Souza, que fará uso da palavra. Now, we invite to the table of honor the language coordinator of the Centro de Formação Antônio Freire, Self-Efficacy, UESP, Mr. Raimundo Souza, to make his speech.
Well, we are really excited for this Teacher Training Day for the third edition, and we are glad that many people have joined us for this morning, and we've prepared a lot of activity for teachers and those that are interested in the topics for teacher development. And I'm really glad that we have many right now following, and we ask you to ask your friends to join us as well. E para a gente é um prazer muito grande estar, né, aqui na coordenação e trazendo esse evento para muitos professores, né? No Brasil tivemos uma adesão muito grande e pessoas também de fora. Então, é isso, muito felizes aqui por estar proporcionando um dia de formação para os professores, né, de inglês e de idiomas. Tá? Muito obrigado.
Nós agradecemos a fala do professor Raimundo. E agora convidamos para a mesa de honra o magnífico reitor da Universidade Estadual do Piauí, professor Dr. Evandro Alberto de Souza, que fará uso da palavra. Now, we invite to the table of honor the magnificent rector of Piauí State University, PhD, Evandro Alberto de Souza, to make his speech.
Bom dia a todos e a todas. Cumprimento aqui o Raimundo, o Alexandre, a Josélia, todos que compõem esta mesa, em nome dos que fazem aqui a Universidade Estadual do Piauí. É um evento que dialoga com o compromisso, né, do Cefaf em ofertar oportunidades de formação aos servidores, né, agora, neste caso, né, professores, pessoas que precisam, estão aqui para fazer essa formação e esse aperfeiçoamento em idioma, línguas e, sobretudo, compreender os processos, né, das metodologias ativas e tecnologias digitais. Como essas metodologias podem incentivar uma participação mais ativa, né, dos alunos no processo de aprendizagem. Como as práticas pedagógicas elas são transformadas pela presença da tecnologia na nova era. É preciso nos adaptarmos, sermos criativos e buscar cada vez mais ter esta inovação no nosso dia. A importância do professor conhecer e se familiarizar com as ferramentas de ensino digital. Como é que nós estamos trabalhando, como o Brasil está trabalhando, como os diversos países no mundo têm se ajustado para enfrentar esses desafios tecnológicos. Desafio de colocar ali juntos tecnologia, ensino e aprendizagem. O benefício da tecnologia nesse processo de ensino-aprendizagem. Por isso, nós queremos aqui parabenizar o Cefaf e a todos que estão aqui nesta manhã, como o Alexandre, como a Josélia, do Centro de Línguas, o Raimundo, que tem esse importante papel de fazer essa mediação, né, com a formação, coordenação de línguas, assim como a nossa diretora, a professora Lucile, todos que compõem a equipe do Cefaf, assim como aqui da Universidade Estadual do Piauí. Então, nós queremos abraçar a todos vocês que estão aqui acompanhando, né, e participarão, ou estão participando já, e outros deverão ali ir entrando na sala e assistindo. Então, nós queremos cumprimentar a todos e dizer sejam todos bem-vindos e bem-vindas em nome da Universidade Estadual do Piauí e do Cefaf. Então, um grande abraço, êxito neste evento e continuem firmes, se informando, tem muita coisa boa vindo por aí, aqui através do Centro de Formação Antonino Freire, Cefaf UESP. Bom dia a todos e a todas. Obrigado, João Pedro Lona.
Nós agradecemos a fala do magnífico reitor da Universidade Estadual do Piauí, professor Dr. Evandro Alberto de Souza. E agora, o Centro de Formação Antonino Freire agradece a presença de todos que compuseram a mesa de honra do evento e os convida para estarem presentes conosco nas próximas solenidades de abertura do centro. Centro de Formação Antonino Freire appreciates the presence of all participants of the Teacher Training Day Table of Honor, and we invite you to be with us again at our next opening ceremonies. E agora, a palestra de abertura, convidamos a anfitriã, a coordenadora pedagógica do Centro de Línguas, Padre Raimundo José, professora Josélia Batista dos Santos, que irá apresentar o primeiro palestrante do dia, o mestre em Psicologia da Educação pela Universidade de Bristol, da Inglaterra, e mentor pedagógico na Edify Education Brasil, André Hedlund. And now, for our opening lecture, we invite the host, the Center of Linguas, Padre Raimundo José, Pedagogical Coordinator, Professora Josélia Batista dos Santos, who will introduce the first speaker of the day, MSc Psychology of Education at Bristol University, England, and a pedagogical mentor at Edify Education, Brazil, André Johnson. Sejam bem-vindos e boa palestra.
Good morning again. It's nice to see you here, André. Thanks for being in our conference. When I invited you to come to this conference, I was really happy when you accepted the invitation. And also, you know that Raimundo has a very big work in English language in Piauí. You know Raimundo, and he is special for us. So André Hedlund, he was traveling in Bristol University in UK with master degree in psychology of education, and he was a National Geographic consultant and reviser. I had the pleasure to meet André here in Teresina when he gave a lecture with National Geographic concepts of materials, and he worked as a mentor of bilingual program to Edify by Spot, and he is also a post-graduation teacher in different areas of multilingualism, neuroscience, and cognition and global education. Welcome, André Hedlund, to our conference today. Good morning.
Good morning, Josélia. Good morning, everyone. It's an amazing pleasure for me to be here today, especially because I know my session and all of the other sessions and discussions will benefit many, many teachers. I realize that some teachers here only speak Portuguese. Tem gente que só fala português, right? I'm afraid my lecture will be 100% in English, but if you want to watch the recording later, I'm sure that YouTube can help you with the subtitles, ok? Para quem quiser assistir depois, é só ativar as legendas em português que vocês vão conseguir entender tudo que eu vou falar, ok? Well, let's get started. I'm excited. I would like, above everything, to thank you, Josélia, for inviting me, and all of the professors who very eloquently talked about the importance of English. So, Professor Alexandre, Evandro, Professor Raimundo, thank you so much for having me here. I'm going to start sharing my screen now so that we can talk about this topic that I hope is really interesting, at least, something that can help you reflect on what you can do to help your students pay more attention, which is essential for learning, right? And we know that nowadays, especially with the remote teaching situation we are going through, I know many schools are still doing that because of the pandemic. It's very hard to avoid distractions, right? Right now, I'm pretty sure that some of you are not really listening to me, are you? So I'm even gonna have some coffee. Are you listening to me? Maybe you're talking to someone. Maybe you just got a message on WhatsApp. Maybe you're watching TV while you're trying to listen to this lecture. Or maybe you are playing with your cat or dog. I have 2 cats. So that means that attention is a resource that we have, but it's a finite resource. So we don't have lots of it. So we have to be able to allocate attention in a very smart way so that we can learn. Now, this is a very important thing to be taken into consideration. And I want you to have that in mind as we go through this session, okay? Well, as Josélia mentioned, I work with bilingual programs. I've had the honor of getting a scholarship to study in the UK as a Chevening scholar. So if you want to know more about Chevening, please do check out the website. And I have a master's degree in psychology of education. But this is my professional profile, right? I wanted to talk to you a little bit about me. Who is this guy here, André? This guy who loves traveling, this guy who loves cooking, for example. I actually gained a lot of weight during the pandemic because, oh my gosh, cooking too much. And I love art. I love music. I wanted to show a couple of things about me that will actually help you pay attention to me, to connect with me, I hope. So the very first thing is that I love llamas, I'm obsessed with llamas. I was really happy, as you can see in the picture, to find a llama when I traveled to Machu Picchu in Peru. And I remember asking my wife to take the picture because I felt like that was the perfect picture. I mean, the most ideal that I would ever be able to take. So that's why I wanted to show you. I love them. They're funny. They're very interesting animals, and I learned a lot about them. Also, I used to play in a very large band. It was an orchestra that basically, it was a local orchestra that we had in my hometown in São Paulo, São Roque, São Paulo. And I used to play the flute, but I also played the trumpet. Okay. So yes, I'm kind of a musician in a way. And that it was a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends. And I also won a couple of competitions as a teenager. And finally, I have a friend, and he is a very cool friend who travels all over the world. And his name is Mr. Trunk. So you can see the little elephant there, and he's a huge Star Wars fan, just like me. And there he is. Let me show you. This is Mr. Trunk, everyone. Say hello to Mr. Trunk. And if you want to follow his adventures, he's been to more than 20 countries. Go to Instagram and Facebook and look for Mr. Trunk Travels. Hashtag Mr. Trunk Travels, okay? And like his pictures. I'm sure he's going to be really happy. Okay, so no more about me. Now, if you want to follow my work, make sure you take a picture of the screen. Follow me on my blog, on social media, Instagram, Facebook. You can also follow the Brastiso Mind, Brain, Education Special Interest Group. Okay. Yes, more than 20 countries, everyone. He's been all over. Yes, I know. With my students, with my friends, myself as well. Okay, so please follow what we are doing, especially with the Brastiso Mind, Brain, Education SIG. Now let's talk about today's session. What are the objectives, okay? I gotta have my coffee, sorry. Well, first we're going to define some concepts relating to attention memory, and then we're going to look at psychology and neuroscience so that we can have evidence-based, or at least be evidence-informed when we make the decisions concerning how our students can pay more attention or not. And then we're going to talk about this one that I like very much. Nirvana Chick sent me hi. So this is to keep you curious, all right? And practical tips. And there's a raffle as well. So that means that somebody here is going to get something. You're going to win something. How cool is that, right? Well, this guy, his name is Paul Howard Jones. He was my professor at the University of Bristol, and he's a major reference in neuroeducation, neuroscience, and education. And I always like to bring this picture because I was really honored to study under this guy. And of course, that was the launch of his book. He signed my book, The Evolution of the Learning Brain. And he used to say something in class that is probably why people normally come to sessions related to neuroscience or to brain, to mind stuff, psychology, right? And he said that neuroscience is sexy, right? So one of the reasons why people want to know more about the brain is because there is such an appeal. We want to understand the brain. The brain is mysterious and intriguing and complex. I do have a brain here to show you. Take a look. This is my brain. I always carry my brain around. And normally when I show the brain and I talk about different parts of the brain, people love that, right? But then there's a problem. Does that actually help you do things that matter? Does that help you help your students? Not necessarily, right? I mean, knowing how something works and the parts that are responsible for certain functions or not might not translate into practical things that can be very helpful and effective, okay? So that's why neuroscience alone doesn't do much, I'm afraid, okay? Now, what can really help you, and this is something that I'm very passionate about, is the idea of mind, brain, and education. So, mind brain education is a very interesting transdisciplinary area that brings together the contributions from M, and that's mind, studied by psychology, B, that's brain, studied by neuroscience, and E, that's education, studied by education and other branches like pedagogy, for example. Now, when you look at this transdisciplinary area, then you can get very interesting and practical ideas and reflections, insights about how the brain works, how the mind works, and what all of that has to do with the classroom and how our students learn there. Okay. So it's not just about neuroscience. Neuroscience is sexy, but remember, neuroscience alone doesn't do much. Everything we do in neuroscience, most things we do in neuroscience, are done in a lab, in a laboratory, in a hospital, inside a neuroimaging machine, for example. And they do not necessarily translate into teacher or teaching practices. And we have to remember that, okay? So mind brain education is a perfect combination, like Raimundo said, you know? Now, if you want to know more about this, go to my website. There's a video there. You can, edcrocks.com. It's recorded. It's on YouTube. I can share with you, and you can know more about the science, okay? So I'm just showing you this because I'm basing this presentation on the science of mind-brain education, because I'm part of the Brastiso Mind-Brain Education SIG, okay? Now, the sixth principle of mind-brain education says basically that there is no learning without attention and memory. This is something that came from the research of Eric Kandel, who won a Nobel Prize for his research on sea slugs, okay? They're very, well, they're not too complex organisms, you know, but they do have neural networks. They have neurons, let's say, but not as many as we do. We have apparently 86 billion neurons, and sea slugs, they have a couple of tens of thousands, apparently. So after studying sea slugs and after realizing that organisms, they have to attend to information or to stimuli, and then transform that into some sort of memory to store. And I don't like this idea of storing, but that's the word that we have, to store that in their brains, if they have brains, and then make it available long term. So there has to be attention and memory, right? Yes, I can see Samantha is here. Very nice. Lots of people here. I can see you in the chat. Please ask questions, okay? So if learning requires attention and memory, what happens if there is no attention or if we get distracted, right? What happens, for example, if for some reason I attend to something else and not what my teacher is trying to teach me? What happens if there is attention, but then for whatever reason, I cannot consolidate that into memory, long-term memory, and then I cannot retrieve that, right? Well, basically what happens is you don't learn, or you don't learn effectively, right? And I will prove that to you right now. Did you notice anything different that happened? I was actually doing something here, trying to distract you from something. Let's see if you were paying attention. Did you? Do you know what I'm talking about? So I'm going to wait a couple of seconds because I know there's a delay from StreamYard to YouTube. Did you notice something that I did here? I was drinking coffee. Yes, John, but more than that. There was something about drinking coffee. Yep. Kamu drinking coffee. Something more. Let's see if anybody guesses. what I'm talking about? Well, well, well. Well, I think most of you did not actually notice, and you were not supposed to anyway. I was drinking coffee from two different mugs, okay? And I can show them right now to you. So I started drinking coffee with my Edify mug, okay? And then I changed. I actually used a different mug. This is the Matryoshka mug, right? Did you see? Did anybody notice that difference? I would love to know if you actually paid attention to that. They're very, very similar mugs. You know, they're all white. They have basically the same colors. And exactly, right? So that's only to prove that if I don't ask you to pay attention to something, you probably won't really, especially if the change is very subtle, right? So and this again, we have limited resources when we talk about attention and memory. So anything that is too subtle, anything that requires your students to really focus, you should actually bring their attention to, right? Now you're not really paying attention to what I'm saying because of the mugs. So I actually made a point of holding my mug like this so you could see that there was a difference. But again, you were probably paying attention to my slide, right? You can see that I'm actually a very small square on the left-hand side of your screen, right? Maybe some of you are watching me on your phones. So it's really, really, really hard to notice those small changes. But what I'm saying is that if you didn't pay attention, which you didn't learn that I was using two different mugs. It's impossible to learn this kind of conscious learning that we're talking about if you don't pay attention, because the stimulus, seeing the mug, is not captured by your brain, right? So that tells us something very important about attention. As a matter of fact, for many decades, people, some authors in general, have typically segregated or differentiated between two networks when it comes to paying attention and not paying attention, or doing a task and not really doing anything, just, relaxing, resting, socializing, for example. And they call it the task positive network, which has something to do with an attention network, the dorsal attention network, and the task negative network. So when you're not doing anything in particular, your task negative network is up, is active, right? So you're not really paying attention, not really focusing. When you are paying attention, when you are attending, so the stimulus, right? Then your task positive network is up. And then you're really taking in the information. So let's do an experiment with you. I'm going to need you to use your hands now, okay? So look at my hands, and I want you to use both of your index fingers, and I want you to touch them. So put them together, your index fingers, okay? And then when you do that, try to move your hand, one of the hands up, and then one of the hands down. Just try to move them like this, what I'm trying to do, okay? And see if you can do it easily, right? And then tell me how you feel about that. There is only one point of intersection, right? Which is here, your index fingers. Now, I want you to try to do with two fingers. So now you're going to touch your middle fingers. They're going to be together. And your index fingers, they're going to be together. And then try to do the same. Try to move one hand up while the one stays down. And then the other way around with the other hand. And then try with 3 fingers. And then 4 fingers. And then let me know in the chat box how you feel about that. Let's see. Let's see if you were able to do it. I can see some people there from different parts, from Piauí. Excellent. Some people are complimenting my English. Thank you, I suppose. Well, I'm an English teacher. I've been teaching for a long time. So, yes, Median said, I can't. Once you have more fingers together, so you have more points of intersection together, it's very hard for you to change, right? To transition from one network to the other. So that means, and again, this specific research I'm talking about is not really, I'd say, 100% reliable. It's controversial. There are other studies showing that we shouldn't really segregate. There shouldn't be a dichotomy between task positive and task negative. But still, a lot of research puts them in separate places, basically. When you need to pay attention, many authors say that you have to have your task positive network up. And when you have to stop paying attention, then your task negative network goes up, okay? And then this one goes down. If you have too many points of intersection, you can't change very well between task positive and task negative. So that means that you cannot pay attention very well. You cannot focus. You cannot do the task very well. And that's what happens in the brains of atypical kids and adults as well. You can see that, here, autism spectrum disorder, what happens is that they have too many points of intersection between the task positive and the task negative network. So when they have to pay attention to something or to do a task, it's very hard to disengage from the task negative network, also known as default mode network, when you're not doing anything in particular, just socializing, just, relaxing, not paying attention, right? So that means it's harder, even harder for them to know when they have to pay attention, to engage and actually do the task, right? So why am I showing you this? Because even though this is, again, it's controversial, we have evidence showing that those two networks, they work together in other respects, really, for learning to happen. But again, there's a lot of research showing that they should be separated when we study them. That means that if one is influencing the other and you can't disengage, it's hard for you to do the task. It's hard for you to pay attention. And then you don't get things done. Does that make sense to you? Just like putting too many fingers together, you cannot really change from one to the other very easily, okay? And then that also tells us something about memory. So if you cannot pay attention, if you cannot attend to the task very easily, without attention, you're not really creating memory, new memory, updating. And that has to do with an executive function in your brain that is very important, updating, working memory, right? So if you look at this memory diagram that I put together here, based on Atkinson and Shiffrin's multi-store model and Badley's working memory, you will see that the first thing that really happens is a stimulus. For example, a visual stimulus. There's something in the environment. There's a slide, right? There is an animal crossing the street. There's something. And then that will or will not become working memory. So you can actually store that temporarily in your working memory. And your working memory is very much like Post-its, And I love, if you are teachers like me, and I know you are, I know you love Post-its, right? Don't you love Post-its, everyone? I'm sure some of you are actually taking notes using Post-its, and I have them in different colors, and I have green, I have pink, I have yellow. So what happens if you write lots and lots and lots of information on a Post-it and drawing and everything, right? So what happens to them? They get full. There's too much, I mean, this is terrible. I should have written a couple of words, right? So if you write too many pieces of information on a post-it, then you cannot put anything there anymore. It's full. So you have to take it off and you have to put it somewhere, right? So on the wall, for example. And that's your working memory. It gets full very, very quickly. It's limited, right? Limited resource. So if your working memory is full, you cannot write anything on that post-it anymore. You cannot really put anything inside your working memory anymore. And then you can experience something called cognitive overload. And when you do experience that, it's like, oh my God, too much information. Just like what many of you are experiencing right now. Hopefully, I am trying to minimize that feeling. But then, okay, so what do you have to do? So you have to take the post-it and put it somewhere else and use another post-it. So you have to refresh, let's say. And then when you do that, you're sending the stuff on the post-it to the wall. You're actually, it's almost as if you were sending the stuff you have in your working memory to your long-term memory, right? So when you do that, after a couple of, times retrieving that, then it's there forever, unless you have some kind of neurodegenerative disease, or sometimes we do forget things that are in the working memory, of course, but it's there for a long time. But again, how do you make that transition from stimulus to working memory to long-term memory? You have some obstacles, the white lines there. If there is a stimulus and you need to pay attention to it, then you can send it to your working memory. So you require attention. If the stimulus is right there in front of you, but you're not paying attention, you're not allocating this limited resource, then you're not making that into, or transforming whatever that is into working memory. And then it's going to be lost. You're going to forget it. But then let's say it has become working memory. Then, well, it will probably get lost very quickly in a couple of minutes. If you do not rehearse or revisit that with a certain frequency, and we all know that, many things that we learn today, we are exposed to today, we can remember them for a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, maybe even tomorrow. But then after a couple of days, we forget it because we didn't rehearse. It was not part of our daily lives, for example. So that's why we need to pay attention to how attention works and how memory works, okay? So you're probably asking, what can we do? I think one of the things that we can do, and this is based on this test. I'm sure many of you know this test. It's called the Marshmallow Test, and it's terrible for kids. It's like torture, right? Oh my God. So what can we do? Basically, we have to remember this. The marshmallow represents distraction, a distractor, okay? And we're trying to avoid we're trying to stop our students, could be kids or adults. We're trying to stop them from eating the marshmallow now because they have to do something else, right? So what we have to do really, based on the research that we have, is to, increase their attention. So, really get their attention, reduce the cognitive overload. So that means reduce the burden on memory, and help them develop some self-efficacy, self-regulation, so that they can control themselves. And this is especially hard in an online environment, right? Because we're not there with them. But the idea is we have to try to avoid the distractions by making sure that they are paying attention to something else, which means our lesson, and that they are not overloading their working memory system. So we are doing it in a way that they can understand, baby steps, and that they are regulated enough to know that they have to do what they have to do, right? So basically, we have to engage them. So I'm going to talk about two things that we have to do, really, and they are normally confused. They're thought of as the same thing, I'd say, but I will give you some tips. All right. So far, so good, everyone. Yeah, all good. I hope so. So anyway, what is engagement? When I ask people all over the world, they have different words that come to their mind. So what comes to your mind when I speak of engagement? What is engagement to you? Let's see. Yes, I can see there. Lenny said it's so important for us to understand our students' behavior. So, okay, median, hook, Samantha, participation, yes. To try and do something, Carmo, exactly. So those are very interesting words, and they relate to engagement. Lots of people, when I ask them, they say that engagement has a lot to do with motivation, but also fun, interest, commitment, invitation, flow, couple, all of those things, right? But you can see very clearly that motivation is what people normally think of when I ask, what is engagement? But the question is, are they the same? Engagement and motivation are not the same when you look at psychology, okay? So, for example, engagement is more task dependent. So that means it depends on the task, right? For example, have you ever seen a student who normally is not motivated? They don't really like the classes, but then you do an activity that is engaging, fun, or challenging, or anything, and suddenly those students really want to be there. They really want to participate. They really want to get it done. Has that ever happened to you? So sometimes you can be very engaged because it's in the moment, right? Sort of thing. And you're not really motivated throughout the course, right? So according to Schlechte, it's more task dependent, and it involves behavioral engagement, cognitive engagement, and emotional engagement, right? So for you to be engaged, you have to show through your behavior that you are engaged. You have to use your cognitive resources to be engaged. And guess what? That means paying attention. And you have to be emotionally engaged to whatever it is that you're doing, okay? Now, this guy, Schlechte, says that engagement has to do with being active. It requires students to be attentive and in attendance. So again, engagement and attention, they walk hand in hand. It requires students to be committed to the task and to find inherent value in it, right? It also means that engaged students do the task with enthusiasm and diligence. So all of those things are important. Without engagement, then if you're just paying attention but not really in an engaged way, you're probably not taking in the stimuli from the environment, right? And he even talks about different types of engagement or different levels of engagement. For example, it has to do with your levels of attention and your levels of commitment, okay? So think about that. Authentic engagement is when your attention and commitment are very high. Authentic engagement. Like, I hope some of you are very engaged today. You're really committed to being here. You're really paying attention, right? But maybe some of you are just at the level of strategic compliance, okay? Your attention levels are high, but your commitment levels are not so high, okay? You're not so committed. Some of you might be at the level of ritual compliance. So your attention is not that high, your commitment is not that high, but you're pretending that those things are high. And we know those students, right? They pretend to be paying attention, but they're not really. You look at them, it looks like they're paying attention, but they might be doing something else. And many times those students are the ones who probably answer one thing in the lesson so that you don't ask them anymore. So they they have some strategies, you know. And then you have retreatism. So retreatism is low levels of attention and commitment. You can tell by their behavior, the way they sit. You know, sometimes if they open their cameras, they're looking somewhere else, or they have their phones and they're probably texting someone. So that's retreatism. And then you have the other one, which is the last level, and that's rebellion. And rebellion is when not only are they not paying attention to what you have to say or committed, they're actually paying attention to something else and very committed to something else in a way that is very disruptive normally. So it's going to cause lots and lots of trouble, right? Anyway, so what do we want? We want everybody to be authentically engaged, or at least at the level of strategic compliance, right? That's what we want. How can we do that? Well, before we go any further, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to try to remember. Try to remember the things that we've been talking about. Share some keywords in the chat box, and I'm going to check here with you, okay? This is very important for you to activate or to strengthen those neural connections. Let's see what you're going to say, okay? Let's see. I know there's a delay here, but I can still see. So, folks, tell me. Anything you can remember, anything that caught your attention about what we've been discussing so far, okay? Tell me. Okay, median, cognitive overload, working memory, Samantha memory, yeah? Anything else, folks? Attention, engagement, authentic engagement, yeah. How to get long-term memories, excellent, okay? So this is an interesting technique for you to use with your students, active retrieval, okay? But then, so if engagement and motivation are not the same, what is motivation? Well, motivation is much more goal-oriented, okay? So remember, engagement is more at the moment, more task-dependent. Motivation is long-term normally, goal-oriented. So it has a direction. I know where I want to get, right? It has an intensity. I'm moving forward, right? It normally relies on persistence. And this is really something that leads to the idea of, I like to call it the Simpsons Paradox, okay? So people who are motivated, they are very engaged many times, but sometimes they are not so engaged, right? It's okay to be motivated. You want to accomplish something, but that day is not your day. You're not feeling great. You're tired. You don't like that subject. I don't know. There could be many things, right? And you are not really engaged that day. But overall, you are more engaged than not because you want to accomplish that goal. So that means you are motivated, right? And why the Simpsons Paradox? Well, because if I ask you, you will probably tell me, what's the difference between Lisa and Bart Simpson, right? An iconic, TV series that lasted for, I don't know, 20-something seasons, right? Maybe even 30 seasons. It's been around for a very long time. But the difference between them is that Lisa is very motivated to go to school, right? In a specific way, whereas Bart is not motivated really to go to school. So something else has to motivate him. So something external, really, like punishment, for example. And Lisa, if Lisa didn't have her parents and nobody to tell her that she had to go to school, she would probably still go to school because she really likes to be there and learn. So that has to do with Ryan and DC's idea of self-determination, that we have intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, right? So who do you think has intrinsic motivation, huh? Lisa, right? And we know from research that stuff like autonomy, relatedness, and competence, they can help nurture intrinsic motivation. So do we give our students that? For example, we're talking about the online environment, right? Do you give your students any sense of relatedness, or are they always with their cameras off, right? If they can't see anyone, they're not relating to anyone, right? On the other hand, having your students open their cameras all the time might cause cognitive overload because too much. But aren't there moments that you can actually demand your students to open their cameras? For example, using strategies like on Wednesdays, we wear pink. So everybody has to wear pink on a Wednesday. And they have to turn their cameras on so that you can see that they're wearing pink. And then there's a sense of relatedness, like we're part of the same group, for example. Or if you're using, I don't know, Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or whatever, many times you can use filters, and then you can have a couple of minutes of your lesson dedicated to different filters. And everybody puts on a hat or glasses or something like that, and they have to open their cameras to do that. So you're giving them a sense of relatedness. Autonomy, do you give them a sense of autonomy online? Or do they always have to simply watch what you do? Do you give them a link to add something to a Jamboard or a Padlet, for example? Right? Do you give them the chance to work together on projects, for example? What about competence? Do you give them a sense of, feedback and where they are and learning curve, their own learning curve? It was not only Ryan and DC who discussed that. Dan Pink discussed that as well. He talks about it in his TED Talk, The Puzzle of Motivation, and he wrote a book about it. And he says that normally we think that if we increase the reward, we get more of the behavior that we want, right? So I will give you something to pay attention, right? I will give you a prize if you pay attention. And if you punish something, you get less of the behavior that you want. Actually, that doesn't work like that always, especially when we're talking about memory and attention, because it simply doesn't work like that. Paying someone to pay more attention doesn't make a lot of sense because of how the cognitive aspect of it works, right? So what does make sense? Well, very similarly to what Ryan and DC proposed, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So, and again, autonomy is very important. When students are in an online environment, how much autonomy do they have? Do they always have to just listen to you as a teacher, watching you talk for many, many minutes like I am doing now? But, the difference is that this is a lecture, it's not a class, right? So what do you do? How do you help your students become more autonomous? Where do they go? What kind of, I don't know, websites or apps do you use to make sure that they are doing something on their own, right? Or is it only the chat box? See? So I'm asking you all of those questions because you have to reflect on them. And that really walks hand in hand with the idea of being self-efficacious. So your students, of course, we have to engage their attention. Of course, we have to try to reduce their memory loads, their cognitive overload. But we also have to make them more accountable for their own learning. So we have to make them more self-efficacious. Albert Bandura talked about this. And he talks about 4 sources of self-efficacy. And active mastery is like, try to do it, see that you can, and then keep doing it. Many times, students, they don't attend to the task because they feel like they cannot do it. So they don't even try. So an active mastery is really trying and seeing that you can. Vicarious experience is looking at somebody else and seeing that they can and thinking, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too. So bringing examples of students who did something. So I had this student who was able to create this very cool website, and then maybe they will be inspired and they will do it as well. They will attend, they will do the task. you can also try to help them see through speaking, through telling them that they can do it. So you can, I have faith in you, verbal persuasion, right? I trust that you can do it. I'm here if you need my help, but I know you can, right? Those things, they can help your students be more autonomous, more independent learners. And their emotional state, realizing that it's not always that they're prompt really or ready to engage, because maybe they're going through something difficult, So talk to them about their experiences, their emotional state. Let them be open to you, and that might help them pay attention. Because if they're going through something very difficult in their lives, in their family, for example, that means that feeling, that emotion is actually taking a huge chunk of their working memory. So if their working memory is like a post-it and there's limited space, and they have this emotional state there that is occupying everything, oh my God, they cannot do anything else, right? Because there's no room for them to actually attend to the information. Okay, now let's do a brain break. So I didn't show you all of Mr. Trunk's adventures, but like I said, he's been to many, many countries, and I would love if you could guess where. So which of these countries has Mr. Trunk not been to? So let me wait, because there's a delay, right? I will wait, and you add your answer to the chat box, okay? Yes, spray break. Which one? Iceland, Argentina. Take your guesses. A, Iceland, Mexico, Turkey, Spain, or Argentina? Iceland. Mr. Trunk has never been to Iceland. Yes? Well, folks, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it's actually Turkey. Mr. Trunk has never been to Turkey. I can prove that to you. So the first picture, he was in the Royal Palace of Madrid, Spain. The second one, he was in Buenos Aires, Florales Genérica, right? Very famous monument there. The third one, he was actually visiting Tequileria in the city of Tequila, in the state of Jalisco, Mexico, very close to Guadalajara. And the fourth one, even though it's not the best, was in Iceland. One of my students took him to Iceland and took this only picture, but he's been there, okay? So you can check his adventures, Mr. Trunk Travels. Go to Instagram, go to Facebook, and even Twitter, and you will find some of his amazing, trips. All right, folks. A brain break is very important. Now, to wrap up, we're coming to the end. What can I tell you, really? I can tell you that for you to engage your students' attention so that they avoid distractions or minimize the distractions, you have to tap into their reward system in the brain. So if you look at the reward system, it consists of basically three very important areas: ventral tegmental area, nucleus accumbens, and prefrontal cortex, okay? I don't need to talk so much about them because, again, if you're interested, you know at least what to look for. But nucleus accumbens has to do with the pleasure center of the brain, right? And ventral tegmental area has a very important role in dopamine release, right? So basically, dopamine is released and it follows this path to the prefrontal cortex, where you're going to find those attention networks and the working memory, right? So if you want to take a closer look, that's what you're going to see. So dopamine, which is a very important neurotransmitter, a neuromodulator that gives you the feel-like feeling. I feel like I want to do it. I want to do it. I want to pay attention. When you have a surge of dopamine, you go like, yay. That's why people love drugs, right? Many drugs, they increase this dopamine release and they feel like they want to do everything, So this is what you can do. You can help your students release dopamine. So basically what you can do is And this is another closer look. You see that the neurotransmitters are being released from one neuron to the other, being captured by basically the other cell, the receptor of dopamine, and then there's a feel good feeling, right? What you can do is work with expectation and reward. So if, for example, it doesn't have to be money, it's just any reward. So if you give your students the idea that they're going to get something fun, something that they want, if you give them this idea, their brains are going to produce dopamine because there's an expectation. When they receive the reward, then another surge of dopamine, right? If you always give them a reward, they always have the expectation, but they don't get the surge when they receive the reward because it's always. So it has to do a reward. Sometimes you give them, sometimes you don't. If they never know if they're going to get a reward, so there's no expectation, they only get a surge of dopamine when they receive the reward. So basically, working with the idea of giving them a surprise reward is actually very interesting because then, wow, they're going to have lots of dopamine. Dopamine will help them pay more attention. And to prove that to you, you can see that the reward system in atypical brains, like people with autism, responds in a different way to something that is rewarding. So you can see on the left side that a typical brain lights up, those regions that are connected with the reward system in the central parts of the brain. They light up when somebody smiles at you. For an autistic kid, those areas are not lighting up. So that's not a rewarding experience for them. So they don't pay attention. So for example, that autistic kids, they have a very hard time staring and sharing attention with other people. For us who are typical, we when somebody smiles at us, it's rewarding, and we normally share attention and we smile back because it's rewarding. So this is the reward you can help your students with. You can give them a smile, you can praise them. I'm going to give you a couple of tips of how you can do it. And so this is something unexpected, the raffle. Haha. So I'm going to give you a reward, and you were not expecting that, I hope. Well, if you post a picture of this event, on social media, and you use the hashtag EDC Rocks plus happy hour because you will be maybe drinking a beer or wine or whatever you choose, or Coke, whatever. And I will send you the link to one of my webinars. So you will have exclusive access to one of my webinars, okay? How about that? Cool? So you just have to take a picture of not this screen necessarily, any of the pictures you were taking there, a screenshot, post it on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Use the hashtag EDCRocks and the hashtag happy hour. And then I will look at the coolest picture, the coolest comment, and then I will give you access to one of my webinars, all right? So 30 seconds for you to retrieve. Try to remember as much as you can about what we've been discussing, okay? And I'm looking here so I'm looking at the chat right now. Anything, folks? Yes or no? What can you remember? Okay, Luis Carlos, motivation. Yes, George Bentley. No worries, George. You can watch it later. Vicarious persuasion. Yes, vicarious. It's actually vicarious experience. Okay, Erika, is looking at somebody else do something and then feeling inspired because, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So it's a source of self-efficacy as well. Very good. Reward, engagement, Samantha, median, self-efficacy, self-determination. Well, to wrap up again, so this is the final section. I still have like 5-7 minutes, okay? Nirvana. Nirvana. Nirvana is this feeling of, I don't know, transcendental achievement, right? Or like out of body experiences, or whatever you want to call it, right? The Buddha. Think about Buddhism. So why did I bring this here? Well, because Nirvana, it has to do with the research of this guy, Nirvana Csikszentmihalyi. Well, when I first saw the name of this guy, he's from Hungary, I probably felt like this, or possibly like this, or even like this. How am I going to pronounce this guy's last name? Well, thank God for some people who transcribed using my prior knowledge, like Chick sent me hi. So Chick sent me hi, Mihai, Chick sent me hi. And you will even find that in some official postings, or even articles on the web. Contribution of Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. So they actually wrote down phonetically so you can pronounce his name. But he is the guy who talks about flow. So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about the idea of following a certain path, a channel, where you are paying lots of attention and your memory is feeding back, or is actually working incredibly well, so that you never get tired, you never stop paying attention, and you get a lot of things done. And that is the flow channel. So when you have too much or too little challenge, and it demands not too many skills, you become apathy, right? If it's something that requires the right amount of challenge and the right amount of skills, high, you become ecstatic, ecstasy. And that's what we want our students to feel like, right? Ecstasy. How do we do that? We basically reduce anxiety and reduce boredom. Okay? So we want the right amount of challenge and the right amount of skills so that our students can pay lots of attention and they don't get cognitive overload. How do you do that? You're probably asking, especially if you're online. Well, here are a couple of tips. How? Reduce distractors. So there are moments that you can actually have your students turn off their phones, have your students turn off their phones, or have your students put their phones away. I know we don't have a lot of control over that, but ask them to turn off the TV or to go to a quiet room. Ask them to, if they're I'm talking about the online classroom, right? Ask them to go in a room that doesn't have a lot of stuff on the walls, so that they can easily stop focusing, for example, on the things that they are supposed to be focusing on. So you can help them do that. You can also make them accountable. So tell them, Pedro, you have to pay attention now because I'm going to ask you something in 2 minutes. Okay, Pedro? Pedro's going to have to answer something. So that means you're actually raising their levels of concern and you're making them responsible for their own learning. If you never ask anybody anything, you never mention anything, you never quiz anybody, they don't really have good reasons to be paying attention, right? So raise their stress levels a little bit. That's important so that they can pay attention. You say, okay, guys, in 5 minutes, there will be a quiz. It's on Google Forms, and all of you will have to put your names, right? So they have to put their names, and you have to answer the quiz. And then that's a great way for you to see the students who are not there because they are not going to do the Google form, and the students who got everything wrong, so they probably were not paying attention. Make them accountable. Make sure that there's something is going to happen so that they have a reason to pay attention to. Scaffold, break things into chunks, help them, get to the place that you want them to be. So baby steps, reduce cognitive overload. Scaffolding is a great way to do it, right? Also, basically, engage. If they are engaged, they are paying attention and they want to be there. That means they are committed if they are authentically engaged. And that means that chances are they will remember the stuff that you are teaching them, right? So to really wrap up now, I always say that, there's always wrap up. There are 3 stages in a framework that was devised by my professor, Paul Howard Jones, okay? Engage, build, and consolidate. So I have talk about this. I posted on the chat there for you. So he talks about something that in my dissertation became engagement, right? So I studied his framework, I studied other frameworks, and there are many other things in my dissertation, but the very first step for your students to actually pay attention is engagement, is the first thing that we have to worry about. And according to Paul Howard Jones, that means you have to let them know that their brains are unique, and you have to know that their brains are unique, and different things engage them in different ways. You have to use the approach response, and you have to reduce fearfulness and anxiety, and you have to help them understand that their brains are plastic and they can always learn. According to what I did in my dissertation, you also have to share the goals of your lesson, activate mirror neurons, engage or deal with classroom management, and establish rapport and motivate your students, okay? So all of those things are important. But what I really want to say here, and this is really, I want to stop sharing because I feel like I've talked too much already, is that you have to give your students a sense of belonging. You have to help your students have basically a reason to pay attention, and you have to make sure that your students are self-efficacious. They can regulate themselves. Otherwise, it's all you. So basically, what I wanted to ask you before I give the floor to Josélia again is, in this session here, did I share the goals with you? Was there any novelty? Because novelty really engages the brain, right? Was there any enthusiasm? Was I enthusiastic? Did I actually give you a reward? The raffle, for example. Somebody's going to get a reward. So if those things are there, chances are you paid attention. If I try to reduce the cognitive overload using analogies, chances are you made some new memories, right? Or you are making new memories. And it's really about what John Bergman said a couple of, he actually told me that last year when I was moderating his session. And he said that, what makes good learning? Active learning and relationships. So if you give your students a sense of belonging, a reason to pay attention because they are going to be asked something or they're going to do something, and you can help them be more self-efficacious, then I'm sure that they are going to pay more attention and they are going to make more memories and they are going to learn more effectively, okay? So thank you very much, everyone. That's it. I probably used a little more than my share, 2 minutes more, but I hope that this was fun, engaging. I hope you paid attention and I hope you learned well, okay? So I'm here if you have any questions. Okay, Josélia. Okay.
Yes, thanks a lot, Andre, for your participation. Let's see if the students have some questions and teachers. But I have to tell you that I was here listening to you, and the part of flow that you talk about.
Oh, yes.
His name is really complicated, I know.
Yeah.
It was a coincidence because yesterday I was talking about him in a webinar. But it's really interesting what you just said.
Wonderful.
Really interesting.
I'm
Yes.
glad to know. I can see that some people are great talk, great, thank you.
Of
If you have
course.
any questions, again, go to my website, everyone. So you have here EDC Rocks. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Carlos, Elizabeth, Gerardo, Elaine. Miriam, Samantha, thank you for being here.
Yes, lovely,
Lovely.
lovely.
Okay, I think that's it, everyone. So
Yeah, can I tell you some
sure.
words, please?
Yeah, of
Would you
course,
like
of
to
course.
thank you, Andre, because you enriched our, conference, and with your lovely way of presenting things. I know you for a couple of years, and I believe that you are the right guy to be here opening this event with your important words and knowledge in
Thank you so
education,
much.
psychology.
Thank you.
Yes,
It's an honor, okay, Joselia. I was really, excited when you invited me. I really wanted to share, and I hope I did a good job today. All right. I hope you
you
learned
did.
something.
Of course, of course you did. Thanks
So,
a lot.
have a wonderful event, everyone, and you know where to find me. And pay attention. Without attention, there's no learning. Okay.
Yeah. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Bom, nós agradecemos a presença da anfitriã, coordenadora pedagógica do Centro de Línguas Padre Raimundo José, a professora Josélia Batista dos Santos, e o professor André Hedman, que é mestre em psicologia da educação pela Universidade de Bristol, na Inglaterra, e mentor pedagógico da Edify Education no Brasil. And we appreciate the hosting of the Centro de Línguas Father Raimundo José, the pedagogical coordinator, Professor Mrs. Josélia Batista dos Santos, and the MSc Psychology of Education at Bristol University, England, and pedagogical mentor at Edify Education, Andreas Johnson. E agora convidamos todos para participarem da mesa redonda a seguir, que debaterá o tema Desafios e Possibilidades na Aprendizagem Remota e Híbrida. Agora convidamos para integrar a mesa o anfitrião, o coordenador do English Club Piauí, professor Alexandre Oliveira, que é um professor que é coordenador também e professor no Centro de Línguas Padre Raimundo José, professor graduado em Cambridge C2 Proficiency, o professor Niels Andreas Johnson, a especialista em metodologia do ensino de francês, como LE, pela Unilea, professora especialista Angela Raquel, o professor do curso de imersão em Language Land e fundador da franquia PLB Professional Languages Brasil, professor Ney Rubens. And now we invite everybody to participate in the Roundtable Annex, which will discuss challenges and possibilities for the remote and hybrid learning. We invite to enter the Roundtable the host, the English Club Piauí, Professor Alexandre Oliveira, graduate at Cambridge C2 Proficiency, Professor Niels Andreas Johnson, the specialist in French learning methodology as LL at Unilea, specialist Angela Raquel, the immersion course professor at a language language and founder at the franchise PLB Professional Language Brazil, Professor Ney Rubens. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and our speaker, and have a good lecture, everybody. Bom, gente, estamos com alguns probleminhas técnicos, a gente está só ajeitando aqui alguns os ajustes finais para as próximas palestras, e para a gente ajeitar aqui mesa redonda, a gente pede que vocês aguardem só um pouquinho e continuem aqui no vídeo com a gente. Continuem nos comentários dizendo se vocês estão gostando da palestra, se vocês estão gostando de participar do evento. A gente agradece muito a participação de vocês. E a gente também pede que vocês sigam a gente nas redes sociais, no nosso Instagram, nosso LinkedIn, nosso Twitter. No Instagram é cefaf.esp, @cefaf.esp. No Twitter é @cefaf.pi. E no LinkedIn é Cefaf, Centro de Formação Antonina Freire. A gente pede que vocês também se inscrevam no canal oficial do Cefaf no YouTube para acompanhar as próximas cerimônias, as próximas palestras e as próximas mesas. Os próximos eventos que vão ocorrer esse semestre, nos próximos, do Centro de Formação Antonino Freire. Então a gente pede que vocês aguardem só um pouquinho, que já já a gente vai voltar com a programação normal e a mesa redonda. Valeu!
Hello, Mr. Alex, Mr. Oliveira. How you doing?
Hi, my friend A. You're doing good. Very excited to start now. We're just waiting for our last panelist so we can start. It won't be a minute.
Okay, I'm teaching right now. I'm teaching kids.
Okay, great. That's interesting.
And I'm using my guitar.
Oh,
Fish
yeah, I
and
know your
flag
position.
and
You're a
frogs,
drummer.
flowers and foreign gin. They have just finished here. Man, we have to do it in parallel, along,
Yeah, sure.
using our creativity, engage them, and at the same time, I know
Yeah,
I'm very good at doing two things at the same time.
I'm not. Definitely. I
I
know
just
Angel is, but I'm not.
It's a skill.
It's really interesting. You're mentioning this, Nate, because when I was beginning my teaching career, I used to use some songs,
Rockfish.
and then one day, one student who was responsible for taking the stereo. Those years we used stereo, right?
Yeah, sure.
Take it to school. But then another student, he lived very close to the school where I was teaching, and then he said, I have a guitar in my house, and I can go there. So he went to his house, which was very close to the school, and then he took it, and I played the song myself, and I felt it was very engaging, unexpected.
Yes.
Wow, this teacher plays the guitar. How cool is that? And after that, I always use music when I play the guitar because it sounds more organic.
Exactly. Yeah, man. I mean that in this pandemic we had to reinvent ourselves. So I started doing things that I hadn't imagined doing before.
That's right.
I just had to. Well, as teachers, we have to be resourceful, yeah. And I'm very curious. I always try to do many things, and I'm learn new things and reinvent myself. I'm always being born from the ashes, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You are a real artist.
Oh, lots to learn, lots to learn. I just try my best.
Music is like magic for kids, right?
So, guys, Joe is telling us we can start. Let's get started, right? We were just having an informal conversation before, start, but then let's do it from the beginning, right? Well, first of all, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon or good evening for those who are in other time zone. So we're really pleased and honored to have the discussion this morning. We're discussing about the challenges and possibilities for remote and hybrid learning in this time of pandemics. So we are honored to have in our panel of discussion Angela Raquel, my dearest friend from long time, in the same school. Andreas Johnson, another great friend of mine. He's from Sweden. We've worked together in another school, and we have had a couple of beers around the town. And Nay, who is also a partner, great contributor to our education in our city. Well, it's going to be a moment of interesting discussions, and I'm sure we are going to enjoy it. And of course, those participants can also ask questions. Okay, Nay, so can you please turn off your microphone? I don't think we're going to do slides, all right? Okay, Angela is going to use slides, okay? She's have a PowerPoint presentation, great. So first, we're going to have some minutes for our panelists to introduce themselves and introduce the topic. Then I'm going to ask them some questions, and in the end, we're going to close the discussions with final considerations. Okay, and of course, those participants who want to ask questions, they're very welcome. Well, first I'd like to introduce properly Angela Raquel. Angela has a degree in English language at the State University of Piauí, and she is a specialist in methodology of French teaching as a foreign language at UNLA. She holds a certificate in French language, culture, and literature from the Paris Sorbonne University in France. She also has a certificate of proficiency in the French language from the Alliance Française in Brasilia, and a certificate of English as a second language by Sheridan College in Canada. She is currently an English language teacher at Dom Barreto Institute and a French and English language teacher at Padre Raimundo José, the Centro Cultural de Línguas from our state of Piauí. So welcome, Angela. We're going to start with you. Make yourself comfortable.
Thank you so much, Alex. I just would like to some help. Cadu, could you? Yes, I'm a little bit lost. I'm sorry. We practiced this, but now I'm okay. So yes, now I got it. So I have to come here and all right. I can't go back to the class, to the room. Okay, Cadu, could you just present? Is it right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's great. Hello, everybody. My name is Angela, and I'm an English and French teacher. Yes, as Alex has introduced me, I work with kids, with teenagers, and with adults. Yeah, so I love teaching, and I'm very glad to be here today to share my experiences with you all. So as we all already know, the COVID-19 crisis has had an unprecedented impact on education. Yes, last year when it struck, the education sector realized that it wasn't prepared for this, and it was really a challenge for everybody, right? So we needed an immediate solution, and the solution was technology. Okay, I remember the day my coordinator told us, "Hey, from today you will be teaching from home, and I have no training for you, but do your best. I know you can do it." And I thought myself, oh, well, it's going to be easy. I already use YouTube videos and the ebook in my classes, so I won't have any difficult to have these classes online. But no, yeah, when I sat to prepare my first class, I remembered I was lost. I realized it. My experience with YouTube videos and the ebooks weren't enough, and wasn't enough, and I was kind of desperate, and I asked for help, of course. I made some research, and I watched some videos on YouTube about online learning, remote learning, hybrid or blended learning, and this helped me a lot. So when I knew, I got to know some more about each one, I was calmer. I was like, well, I am able to do it. I will do it, it's sure. And I could see the pros and cons of each one, and could adapt each one to my classes. I could see that online learning is better for adults because it requires some independence, and kids, they don't have this independence yet. The remote learning was a good choice for kids, because we can interact with them through the cameras. And the hybrid or blended learning, that for me, it was the best choice for any age, because it makes the different, it makes different activities, the face-to-face learning, the online learning, and it brings more, we can feel students better with the blended or hybrid learning. I'm not, I know that I have to improve. Yeah, I know that I have to improve yet, but I think that I'm on the right way to do it. So I'm gonna let my colleagues, the others, to continue the talking.
Great. Thank you very much, Angela. We're going back to your comments later on, okay?
All right. Thank you, Alex.
Now I had the pleasure to introduce my friend Andreas Johnson from Sweden. Andreas Johnson is a private EFL teacher in Teresina. He studied at Francis Kane School of English in London, and he has a Cambridge C2 proficiency from that time. He was also a proud founder of the Cultura Inglesa Drama Club in Teresina, and later he graduated from the State University of Piauí in English. Good morning, Andreas. So it's
Good
a pleasure to
morning.
have you with us.
Okay, I'll just have to fix this. So thank you for having me, and I think I know everyone. So hello, nice to see everyone again. My situation as a private teacher during the pandemic is, of course, vastly different from the ones who are teaching big classes. But yeah, so for me, a big challenge had to do with actually retaining students and being able to teach them and find new students, right? Because since the pandemic hit many households financially, it made it harder. I mean, English was one of the easiest expenses to cut for many people. So that made it more difficult. And of course, it helped when people had goals. But even if you had a goal to travel, for example, or if you wanted to move, the pandemic made it very uncertain, right? I think you could see some really nice new experiences with using online learning, and at the same time it brings new problems, right? So I'm not sure if we should get into that right now. What do you think, Alex?
I guess we can hold on a second and discuss things later. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Andreas.
Thank you.
Now, let me introduce Ney Rubens. Ney Rubens Nunes has been an EFL teacher for 20 years in Ponta Grossa, Paraná, in São Paulo, and in Teresina. Ney is the founder of PLB Professional Languages Brazil franchise. He's a polyglot and a teacher of Italian, French, Spanish, and Mandarin. He's a teacher of public speaking, entrepreneurship, interpersonal relationships, and marketing. Ney has graduate degrees in higher education, teaching, education, and English language proficiency on Kin Street College in London. And he also has certificates of applied linguistics and TESOL at the University of Leicester and the University of Glasgow. It's an honor, it's a pleasure to have you here with us, Ney, this morning. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Alex, one more time. I think this is the third time I participate in an event with you. I'm always honored to take part in these panels. I think they are very good to, to get through to people and expose the relevance of what we do, and to make them understand that languages are also, is also something very important that you want to elevate your cultural background, your cultural knowledge. It's actually interconnected. Culture and languages are things that cannot be separated from one another. Anyway, these times have been really difficult, especially for me as an entrepreneur. I had to close down my businesses. But on the other hand, I had a great opportunity to reinvent myself. So I think the key word nowadays is reinvention. We all had to think outside the box and come up with, solutions to tackle these dire times. Anyway, for me, the pandemic was also a great opportunity, and I always think that the glass is half full, not half empty. I'm very optimistic and a survivor, like everyone here in this panel. We are survivors. We have to think ahead and try to find ways to, to survive, basically. Yeah. So during this time, I took this time as a sabbatic time. So I explored all the skills and all the things that I I had and I wasn't using. I studied a lot, and I tried to keep some students to get me by. The internet was paramount for for all of us basically, and we learned how to to do things, to use new tools, to research, to deal with students who are not interested in taking classes online. And now I can see that students prefer to have classes online. I don't know if you guys have the same feeling, but I can tell you that 70% to 80% of my students now prefer to have online classes. And I do think that the hybrid mode, like the hybrid approach, is and will be the most important, the solution for our times, for the new normal, as they say, okay? So the pandemic for me was really bad in a way, but it was really good, extremely good in another way. So I have no complaints, and I grew as a human being. And I think that's life. If you want to, if you see things with how they call it, with positivity, you get through to the problems. You actually overcome all difficulties and so on. So yeah, that's it. I mean, I talk too much.
Yeah, thank God you talked very important things, very important points you have raised here. Thank you, Ney. Before our second part, I'd like to say hello to everybody who's on the chat box. So I have some friends over here.
Hello, brother.
My great friend, Valdano, Gerardo, my great friend from work, long time ago. So Val Beclesi, Hannah, who is a singer. She'll say, Je t'aime, Angela. Everybody loves Angela, right? We also have Svetlana from Kazakhstan. Well, I'm glad lots of people are here. Silvana said Andreas looks a musician from Sepultura, which, by the way, there's an Andreas over there, right? Andreas Kisser.
Yeah. Well,
you're not Andreas Kisser, right, Andreas?
No, and I just sing in the shower, so I'm afraid musician is out the window.
Great. All right. Well, guys. Well, let me try to explain. I guess Ney is in his environment of work, so he's going to take part. I really appreciate the effort he's making because he had a professional commitment, professional appointment here.
Now I have a break now. I'm in my break.
Okay, but because people are asking about your camera because it's turned off, it's off. So I guess it was because of your environment of work. That's all right. Most important thing, you're giving your speech here with us. Thank you very much. Well, first question I'd like to start now. We start with Angela, the lady among our beasts, right? And now I'd like to start with Andreas. First, I'd like to know about your perspective, Andrea. What were the greatest challenges in this time of pandemics concerning education you had to overcome throughout this time?
Okay, so I made have some points with different challenges, and they are not in any particular order, so they might be more or less important. But I think one of the problems is that students do not necessarily have the right state of mind when it's online, because you don't have the whole get dressed, go to school or go to university, the whole routine. Sometimes people go, oh, I have class in 2 minutes, or I'm still sleepy, and that can bring problems, right? So that, I think, is a challenge. to get people the students to take it more seriously, so to speak. Yeah, the routine of it.
Yeah.
Another thing is to keep the attention of students, especially when you have, like we do here in Brazil, we use WhatsApp all the time. You have Instagram, other apps as well, and it's not really ideal to be using the same phone, for example. Can create problems, right? I did not have this problem a lot since I usually work with smaller groups, but I can imagine that in a big class and with younger learners, it must have been a problem. Yeah? I think it's also harder to survey the class, to get a feel for the class. Are people paying attention? Are people learning? It's harder to get feedback, right? And of course, things like group work, pair work. If you're doing it online, how are you going to do it? How are you going to fix it? Is it going to work? Yeah, hard to know unless you know your students. What else? Technology, of course. If you're not good at using your phone or good at using your computer, if you have internet problems, all of these can create big problems, right? But if we look at possibilities, as Nay said before, I really believe that hybrid learning is on the rise. It's going to be more popular. I also felt that many of my students like having online classes. I think it's a lot of it is because you save a lot of time, right? You don't have to sit in traffic. You don't have to face, in our case, the heat of Teresina, right? So it's positive in that way because you can use more of your time efficiently. I think you can also use more interactive media online. When you can send something, you have your students do it. It's better than using a textbook usually. Yeah. So let's see. Another positive point is you can bring people together from around the world. Instead of having a class and you have to invite someone from somewhere far away, you can actually just have them come into your online class, and that's a great advantage, I find, especially in language teaching.
You know what, Andreas? I've got students in Argentina, in Goiânia, São Paulo,
there you go.
Now, you see? So I didn't have that before, but now we have the whole world. So the frontiers, borders are wide open now. We can reach people anywhere right now. And now we are specialists. We are becoming specialists in teaching online. And as you said, we can use lots of different tools. We can use the internet, and you can research, and we can search anything we want in real time, way better than a textbook. Okay, we are not enclosed. We're not within four walls anymore. We have the whole world with us. Okay, we can use lots of materials, and we can make our classes even more interesting.
And as you were saying, I think that since we're looking for online material, we become more. We sift through a lot of material, and that makes us learn more and become more critical of the sources that we use. So I think that's very good for us as teachers. Instead of, for example, having the same textbook with several classes and just going through the motions. Yeah.
Great. Well, okay. Before Angela goes on, yeah, I'm paying very careful attention to the chat box. So we have Glauber Rodrigues Alcoforado. I guess, I'm not sure, but I guess you're a family member of Gabriela Alcoforado. She's a great contributor to the English Club. So if you are, send my best regards to her. Raimundo is also talking about a question that we're going to discuss about technology. So, yeah, Claes, I'm reading everything. So there are people from Guaratinguetá, Rufina, my friend Leni is here too, Edna, Otávio. Okay, great. From Avelino Lopes. Okay, glad you're here, guys. Well, Angela, what about your opinion about the challenges you have faced in this time of pandemics in your profession?
Well, I think my challenges are the same as Andreas. The first one was the technology. Yes, it was a big challenge for me in the beginning. I couldn't deal well with the websites, look for online tools. Yes, but now I think I can do it well for, right now. The other challenge is about the students' engagement. Yes, this is, I think that maybe it's the biggest challenge for us because, as Andrea said, we don't know if the students are paying attention to our classes for what we are saying, or if they are on the WhatsApp sending messages. Yes, and in big groups, this is worse. Yes, in big groups. To control all of these students is hard work. It's a hard work. We are trying, and we are doing our best, but it's very challenging, this
All right.
getting students' attention. And the other challenge I faced, actually, in the beginning, I had some problem with the volume activity to correct. Yes, because students were posting a lot. Every activity they were posting, and I had to read, to correct each one of them. Yes, and this took me a lot of time. So the tools helped me. Yes, Google Forms. Yes, Google Forms has helped me a lot with this, because the students, they do the activity and they have the correction right away after finishing it. And also I'm using some online activities too, where they when they finish doing it, they can just check and the activity is corrected, and this is also awesome for me. This has helped me a lot, and I think
right.
that's just this for the challenges.
Well, I guess these are not the only challenges, but these are very crucial, definitely.
Yeah,
Well,
they are.
Sydney Cardoso is asking how to join the English Club. There's an Instagram. You can search for that on Instagram, Teresina English Club. You can also try THE English Club. THE because it's the English Club, and because it's Teresina English Club. So you can go there, and then we'll let you know about our events, and you can also see some posts that we do every week. Okay. So I'd like to say my regards to Isdalva too. Okay. So lots of people are talking about your discussions. I'm glad they are really paying attention and enjoying your conversation. Well, anything else about the challenges of this time, Nate?
Yeah, I mean financial challenges, right? Because I closed my my office, my last office, and actually there was a time I had three rented places. One at the how do you call it? The office tower. Another one on Jockey Club Avenue. Small places because my classes were only 1-to-1. And I had an idea to set up a business for kids, and I called it bilingual playground kind of thing. You see, it was to be a great success, but then soon after I opened it, the pandemic came, and like a huge tsunami and destroyed everything. I mean, destroy the physical things, yeah, physical assets, not my intangibles. My intangibles, they grew quite considerably because I I dived, I started studying, and I actually I turned a very focused person. I turned into a very focused person, even more than I was before. And because I knew that the only way out of this was by studying, by reading, by get an interest in something. Okay. And I had difficulties that there were last year. I had there were months that I was totally dependent on my family, so I didn't have money for the supermarket. Because when I closed down my companies, I didn't have any income anymore. My the money I had, uh, just withered away. So I was left with nothing, empty-handed, and I was totally dependent on my wife with her public job, and my family. So it was very frustrating in a way. But then after some time, I started to regain confidence, and I started to contact my students. I tried to be bolder. I contacted my old friends from America, from England, and I started organizing lives. Now, there was a time that people would do lives every week. So I contacted my friends in America. I used all my weapons, right? And I started interviewing them and talking to them, and this helped me a lot. I enrolled new students, and things started to roll again. But man, it was, as I said, very bad in a way. It was like being punched on the nose. Uh, but then the recovery was very very fast as well. Because, as I said, if you have education, if you know how to do something, you recover everything. You can lose everything, but then you get everything back. So I'm really, I knew that before, but now I'm way more convinced that only education can get us out of this quagmire, of this mess. Uh, now I'm quite well now, thank God. My wife now, she's a vet, but then she had to think outside the box as well. Now she tends pets at people's houses, and now she's making good money now. But we had to reinvent ourselves. As I said, study. Never stop studying. Keep doing new things. Take interest for different things. Be resourceful. Learn to do different things. Because by doing like that, money will always be there. Have no doubt about it. No mistake.
Well, thank you for sharing. It was a very honest, sincere talk, Nate. We really appreciate that for sharing with us. Second question, I'd like to start with Andreas again. So I'd like to know, Andres, you have realized any opportunity to strengthen your skills as an educator, as a teacher, concerning online classes?
Well, yes, because I didn't do many online classes before, to be honest. I always felt you needed a personal connection to your students. However, it was a must, right? It wasn't a choice. And I think opportunities, for example, material, as I mentioned before, I really found a lot of material that I would never have found otherwise. Different ways of using it, being more diverse, changing things in a different way. So, however, I really feel you have to know your students. So it's good if you are able to meet them as well, right? So that you have a relationship before you do the classes. Yeah, that's basically it. And as I think, as Nay said before as well, you can research things while you go, so that you get more. You can link things together in a better way, right? You can bring in questions from the students at that time when they want to know it, and not just say, "Oh, next class, I'll tell you." Right? You can, integrate it.
That's right. Sure. What about you, Angela? Have you had any opportunity of strengthen your skills as teacher in this time of remote online classes?
Yes, a lot. As Nate said, the pandemic was an opportunity to reinvent ourselves, yes, as teachers, as educators too. And I feel myself today more confident about teaching online. Yes. I have had never taught before online before, and it was a challenge, but I think I overcame it, and yes, I improved a lot my teaching skills during the pandemic. This is sure.
Right. Thank you, Angela. Well, what about you, Nay? My question is, have you found any opportunity to
A
reinvent
lot of
yourself
opportunities.
and strengthen your skills as a teacher in an online environment?
Alex, I'm very suspicious to say that, but I've bankrupted 5 times already. So I had lots of dramatic events throughout my life. So here in Brazil, in the south of Brazil, in England, in Europe, I had lots of drawbacks, lots of pitfalls, lots of very strong things happening to me throughout all these years. So I am, I've got a thick skin, if you will. So, and as my wife says, I milk, stones. So I take milk out of stones. Okay, so and because I want to pass on an example to my children and to people who I live with. Not because I think I'm best. I'm better than anyone. I'm the best. No, I don't think that. But I put a lot of effort to come out of difficult situations. Okay, I thought the pandemic was wonderful. Why? Because I recall, it's a little bit dichotomic what I'm saying. It's a little bit weird, but it was excellent. I lost a cousin who was 44 years old. He caught COVID and he died within 4 days. It was very traumatic. But despite that, in spite of all that, I had lots of victories. Why? Because the pandemic gave me the opportunity to think about myself and to think about what I had been doing until the pandemic broke out. And I started anew. I focused on other things that I hadn't focused before. I recovered my, my bachelor's in accounting, my university degree. I didn't even have my diploma. I had lost my diploma. So I had lost my accounting diploma. Okay, I had to get another one. I had to pay a fee and get another one. And during this time, I did four specific, graduate courses. Yeah, like in Brazil called pós-graduação, but I did four, and I would study day in, day out, in a very frantic way. I had never studied so much before. I had never read so many books before in my life. Reading and studying was my tool of war. It was what I had that moment. I didn't have money in my pocket. I didn't have anything. What I had was the opportunity to get back on my feet and keep on fighting, because of my family, because of my kids, because of me, especially. Okay, because of me. I wanted to offer something else, something I wanted to excel. I know that I have a long way to thread, a long path to thread, but I can tell you I am halfway. And
That's very humble.
yeah, I think we have to consider ourselves ignorant always. Ignorance is the best thing mankind was granted with. Always think I'm ignorant. Never lose
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Great, Nate. Thank you. Wow. Um, so lots of people are talking on the chat box. Yeah, Raimundo is calling attention that we have another talk at 2:00 p.m., which I think will be with Professor Rachel Anderson, right? She's really gorgeous. Met her in the United States, and she's a great educator, great professor. Well, let's restart with Angela now. So, how has technology, Angela, helped or hindered you in achieving your role as an educator?
Well, I think that technology has brought a lot of innovation. Yes, and not only innovation, but benefits for students too, and for us, of course. And I feel very well when to know that students are getting more independent using the technology to study too. And the other benefits we can mention that makes me feel comfortable about that I can provide materials, and these materials can be reviewed by students at any time, at anywhere, and this brings the flexibility, yeah, to learning flexibility and time management. And this is something that makes me feel comfortable about teaching online. And I know that this has changed also my way of thinking. Think out the box, yes, to think out the box. And I'm sure that technology has changed education forever during this period, this pandemic. And things are will never be the same as before. I'm not telling that we are leaving behind the traditional education, but we are adding technology to help to make it better and bring more knowledge, more opportunities to learn to students. And this is what makes me feel really, really happy about the pandemic and about the online classes.
Great, Angela. Yeah, that was a time to really think outside the box, right? What about you, Nate? How has technology helped you or hindered you in achieving your role
Yeah,
as an educator?
yeah. Actually, you see, Alex, everything we do in life has a reason. I actually started my entrepreneurial, activities by teaching online in 2010. I think I was one of the first, uh, you know, teacher here, one of the first teachers here to use Moodle to teach. So I had this knowledge before, and back then when I did that, when I started that, lots of people would say to me, "Look, you're crazy. That doesn't work. The only thing that works is physical classes. Students want to feel you, wants to teach you, wants they want to have the environment." Well, this is right. I mean, this is good. Physical classes will never be substituted. But then what I'm saying is, everything you do in life, even though when you're doing it is not very valued, it might help you sometime. So that's why I believe that you have to do everything. We have to try things. We have to see ahead. You have to, even though people will tell you off, or will not, it won't give you, even if people won't give you the right, how to call it, advice, or the right feedback. Do it, think outside the box, do it, because one day this can help you. So for me, it wasn't very difficult to teach online at all, because I had this background. I had done that before, and I knew what I was doing, right? I felt strange at the beginning, because obviously it wasn't something that people were used to. So we all had to readapt. But then if you had a little, a little knowledge on this, people who had knowledge before the pandemic, I think they didn't feel as strange as they could have felt. Um, so for me, it was very natural. It flew. I mean, I didn't have a lot of difficulties. The students, they did. I mean, the students didn't like it very much. So at the beginning, it was very difficult to convince them that what I was doing would help them the same way physical classes would. So it was a bit of a challenge, but I think over time we we just overcame this, and now they are adapted to the internet, to having classes online, and they know Zoom, they know all the internet tools, and everything the internet has to offer, Teams, Zoom. I think we gained a new vocabulary. we we actually we are using words that we didn't use before. Yeah, it was challenging, but if people had the knowledge before, I don't think it was that hard. Anyway, that's my experience.
Yeah, we definitely included new vocabulary to our teaching menu. I myself, I used Zoom, Jitsi Meet, Google Meet, Cisco WebEx, Microsoft Teams, different platforms. And that's the same thing. Before that time, I just thought about Skyping people, which was cool. But nowadays, we are definitely more comfortable with this new situation. So, Andreas, I'd like to listen to you about the importance of technology to
improve,
yeah,
achieving my role as an educator.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it helps a lot when you study, when you need to find something. Technology is great. You don't have to. I mean, how many people today go to a library to look something up and copy something by hand in a book, right? So that has definitely helped me. It also helps me in the way of getting in contact with new students. Some not too long ago, I started also teaching Swedish, and it was, I mean, it's very different knowing a language and teaching it. So it's a big process, right? And technology definitely helped me because it's kind of hard finding Swedish grammar books and so on in Teresina, as you can imagine. So yeah, it's really helped. I'm a bit concerned of the speed of everything that's happening with the technology, and the students with the attention span and the amount of information, because there is so much right now that it's I feel becoming a problem as well, right? It can be tough, but yeah, technology.
Yeah, and besides, we know that Brazil is a country which struggles a lot with social inequality, and social inequality impacts dramatically, and it really widens the distances between wealthy kids and less privileged kids. I mean, in terms of economical gain. So it's a dramatic situation, definitely. Well, there's a question here. Gerard Bentley said that Fernanda says is asking which website you use most of our online class. Like I said, use lots of platforms, but there are the platforms that we use as the media, as a channel, like Google Meet, Zoom, Cisco WebEx, Microsoft Teams, Jitsi Meet, and many others. But there are also the websites that and the tools, the apps that we can use, like Kahoot, Lyrics Training, and many other things that I know lots of us end up using in our classrooms, which is funny, but it's true that when we are in physical school, sometimes we have this problem of turning on the cables and finding the head projector. But over here, it's very practical. We just log on and everything is in our computer. So it's really convenient. Now, I'd like all of you, first, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us in this morning. I guess it was a very fortunate decision to invite you because you are really experienced, resourceful, and high quality educators. I know this for a fact because I know your work. So the event is really honored to have you here this morning. It was a pleasure, and I know from the comments that I'm reading here, I know it was a great time for all of us, for all the participants. And I'd like you to give your final remarks concerning this topic that we're discussing today, which is the challenges and the possibilities for remote and hybrid learning. So let's now let's start with Nay, because I'd like Angela to close. Right? She's the cherry of the cake.
Oh well, I'm very honored to have been invited for this event, and you know, Alex, that I keep high, you know, uh, you know, respect for you and for everything you do. I really like your projects, the English Club, and everything you do is, I know that is high quality, and you are reference. I really look up to you. You are a great guy, a great human being, and every time you invite me to come to participate in anything, you can count on me. Okay, I will bend my, you know, I will bend backwards to participate. And today for me was very challenging because I had class until 11. But everything worked out okay. Um, it's good to see Andreas again. I really like him. I actually miss talking to you, man. Angela is a great educator, and as you said, we had top notch people here. Uh, well, I just want to say to to tell everyone that they have to keep trying. Okay, keep doing things. Reinvent yourselves. Uh, Study, read, be positive. There are lots of bad news over there. Lots of pitfalls and drawbacks. Life isn't easy anymore. I don't think we will ever get rid of this mask. I think we're gonna be wearing masks for a long time to come. Keep positive, uh, study, be resourceful, try to learn other things. The future, the present, the future professional will be. I mean, will the good professional, the out of the out of the how do you call it? The excellent professional, the good professional in the future will be the one with more resources. Okay, more to offer. Uh, don't stay only in languages. Do other things, music, do other things, painting. Try to be resourceful because in the end, everything helps you. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much, and until next time.
Thank you, Nay. That's true. That's true. I think one of the beauties of being an English teacher or a language teacher is that you have contact with different knowledges. So you can really learn about everything and teach about everything. It just
That's true.
depends on your interest. So, Andreas, your final remarks. Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, it's good to get together with people, even if it's not in the same room. Okay, I just want to go back to a point where we talked about before the workload. Angela was talking about the homework and the assignments and everything. And the pandemic really took all of these institutions and threw them in the deep end of the pool, right? There was no structure or infrastructure to help everyone. And I think that is something that can really bring online learning to the next level. When we have how can I say, support system that helps us more, right? If you have a support system, even if it's from an institution or if it's your own, or you have, your backup plan, so on, that can really improve, I think, what you can offer. So that's my final remark.
Great. Thank you very much, Andreas. So now we have the pleasure to have our final remarks with Angela. So thank you very much again, Angela, for being here with us this morning. So what is your final message for the audience?
I'm honored to be here. You know, my teaching language is my passion, and I love to talk about it, even if it is in English or in French or in Portuguese. I'm very happy to be here with you. And as Nate said, I just want to say to teachers or those ones who are studying to be teachers that yes, we really make the difference. We can make the difference in our students' lives and in our community, and think always positively, okay? Because things are hard. Things are hard, but we can overcome all of this, and the magic happens sometime. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you next time. I hope I will be invited again.
Sure. All right. Just saying hello to our friends on the chat box. Francine, my greatest friend, great educator, big hug friend. Jaciara, Alex Rodriguez, Rosa, or Rosa, I'm not sure. Okay, Márcio Rodrigues, René Valdez. We have a few questions here. And, Rosa is asking about how to get attention of children. She teaches 6 to 10 years kids. That was a previous lecture from Andreas. He really discussed important concepts and strategies to achieve this attention gain of young kids. Well, not sure if anybody's coming here to end, but I'd like to finish this morning. We're going to come back. We're having a break now, and 2 p.m. we're coming back with new talks. Thank you very much, thank you very much, Valeria, Noelia, Iris Dalva again, okay, Ademir, okay. So, guys, it was a pleasure to be here this morning with you. João is here to wrap it up.
Hi, guys. Just want to thank the time, and we are very grateful for the lecture of everybody, our hosts and our speakers. Thank you very much. Eu só estou aqui só para agradecer o tempo de vocês e a palestra. Foi muito construtivo. Muito obrigado pela participação de vocês. E eu só vou encerrar aqui para dar um recado final para a gente voltar às 2 horas. Só para agradecer que agora a gente vai fazer uma pausa e a gente vai voltar às 14 horas com a palestra número 2, Gênero, Educação e Covid-19, Autocuidado do Professor com uma Habilidade de Liderança. O link para a palestra ele vai estar disponível no grupo oficial, de quem tiver aí no grupo oficial vai estar disponível lá, no evento do WhatsApp. Então, tipo assim, se você está nesse grupo, vai estar lá tudo bonitinho, a palestra das 14 às 15, aí temos depois, a partir das 15 horas, nós temos os workshops, e das 17 às 16 a gente tem a última palestra, que é a palestra número 3. Então, se você está aí no grupo do WhatsApp, vai estar lá o link bonitinho para poder entrar nessa próxima parte da nossa programação, que acontece a partir das 14 horas. Now we will make a pause and be back at 2 p.m. with the lecture 2 of the day, Gender, Education, and COVID-19, Teacher Self-Care and a Skill of Leadership. The link is available at the official group of WhatsApp group. Thank you very much. See ya. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.